and welcome to our live webinar. In the spirit of COVID-19, we're doing this live and feeding this live streaming right here from ATRR, our venue sponsor. At the same time also, I'd like to thank our supporting organizations. We have Singapore Business Federation, E2I, as well as PayPal for being our supporting partners. And of course, this webinar is brought to you by both the Banking and Financial Services Union and the Singapore FinTech Association. And this webinar particularly focusing on remote work, productivity, as well as communication amidst all this flurry of activities in view of COVID-19. And today we have two special guests with me. Firstly, Sean, who is the International Residency Manager with PayPal, and of course Raymond Lee, who is a Senior Consultant with BCP Asia. So thank you both of you for joining us. You'll hear from them shortly as I pose some of the more difficult questions to them. But before that, I thought good to set in context what's happening locally in Singapore as well as in the region. I think COVID-19 has taken many countries, including Singapore, by surprise. Particularly after the Chinese New Year period, we have seen various hive of activities impacting organizations and businesses. As you know, it has gone, the virus spread has gone beyond China to neighboring countries, including now Singapore. And of course, as we are talking, the virus is still spreading, and Europe, including the United States, have been impacted in more ways than one. We see effects on companies, businesses, industries, various sectors, including as recent as the last 48 hours, oil prices as well as the stock market. So I think it has ramifications across the globe. And in particular, if you look at COVID-19 this round, I think the last big scare or virus scare, to my recollection, particularly in Singapore, was SARS in 2003. And I think the impact this time is greater and of greater magnitude for a variety of reasons. I mean, one of which is China now being the epicenter of the spread, is one of the biggest or largest manufacturer for many products and services, including R&D activities for not just the region as well as the globe. So I think that has provided a platform where the effects or the adverse effects of the virus being felt by many parts of the world, many countries being trading partners of China. At the same time, also supply chain being affected because of this flow of trade activities. And of course, today we are much more globalized than 17 years ago when we had SARS, and air travel is more frequent, etc. And if you look at COVID-19, the impact to Singapore, the government has come out publicly to say that economic growth will be adjusted downwards. So I think we are feeling the impacts. And of course, as recent as just 2.5 weeks ago, we see Budget 2020. So the Finance Minister as well as Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat rolling out through Budget 2020 a whole series of measures to help companies and businesses affected, and of course those that may be affected or indirectly affected through the stabilization and support program, and of course the various measures, not just to overcome the short-term challenges, but at the same time also we are seeing digital disruption, technological change, advancements, and the various transformations all happening all at the same time. So I think we are not just preparing for the short term, but also the long-term challenges as well. And in Singapore, we have already a COVID-19 multi-agency government task force trying to overcome COVID-19 through keeping members of public and fellow Singaporeans informed of what's happening on a daily basis, and what measures to take and the things that we are doing to overcome the various challenges. So I think, in short, many companies and organizations are also gearing up, including my organization in the National Trades Union Congress. We are also on Team A, Team B, and all the various business continuity planning measures. So, as organizations and companies roll in or get their hands dirty into all this business continuity planning and risk management, at the same time also managing staff, resources, and companies, I will start posing questions to Raymond and Sean on how from a strategy angle, from a management angle, and as well as from a running organization and running the BCP functions, how they overcome COVID-19 and manage staff morale and productivity and communications. So in light of the current COVID-19 outbreak, many businesses have activated some kind of business continuity. So what advice, Raymond, do you have for management and staff and the team running some of these operations?
All right, thank you, Patrick. My advice for the management is that under these circumstances, they will have to create awareness and also to educate the staff on the seriousness of whatever response measure they have put in place in the organization, and also the consequences of not complying to those measures that have been put in place. Now, as you have mentioned, most organizations right now have undergone a split team arrangement. Basically, they split themselves into Team A and Team B. So the purpose of doing this split team is to make sure that the members in the Team A don't get into contact with the members in Team B. Now, when we have this arrangement, members in the Team A you usually work in the office, for example, and then the members in the Team B, where would they work? They will work in the alternate site in another office, or they may choose to work from home. Now, when you're working in another locations or working from home, some of the activity may not be conveniently performed. And that's when the members in Team B may want to choose to go back to the office and perform some of the stuff there. Yeah. Right? Maybe just for 1 hour or so. Maybe they don't have a printer at home. They want to go back to the office to print. Yeah. Now, are we supposed to allow this to happen from the management perspective? Now, obviously the answer is no. We should not let this happen. So the management at this moment has to take a very strong stance on not allowing the members in Team A and Team B to meet when they are split. So they have to support the operation for both teams, especially those who are in Team B, working from home and working at alternate site. They have to support them with maybe resources and with maybe additional means of getting their work done. For example, if some of the work cannot be performed by the Team B, maybe Team A have to take on more responsibility in doing more work. For example, if Team B need to sign some documents from the office, and what the management can do is not to get the members of Team B to go to the office to sign, but to arrange for courier services to bring those documents from the office to home, get it signed, and then bring it back. So it's a little bit inconvenient, but that is the right things to do. Yeah. Now, very important, for management, they themselves also have to set an example. What do I mean by set an example? Now, this is the time whereby the management is not to do what we call management by walking around. Like some of the senior management felt that they have the rights to just visit any offices that they are under them. Now, this is not the right thing to do at this current time, because they will be the weakest link that will potentially be passing the viruses around the office. So what the senior management need to do is they themselves also have to split into Team A and Team B, and they should not meet each other. And it's only when the management is able to lead by example to do this and to comply with their own sets of rules, then the employees in the organization will take it seriously, and then they will comply to whatever measures that the management will put in place.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, because I heard some, not just Team A and Team B, some even have Team C. So is this common, and why people have a Team C, and how do you run that kind of BCP arrangement?
Right. Yes, the more team you split, the more resiliency you will have, because if one of the team got infected, that means you have a smaller team that's being infected and quarantined, and therefore you have a larger workforce. But splitting a company into more teams will, what we call, dilute your capability of each team. And a lot of companies find that also challenging to split into 2 teams already. So to split into 3 teams is even more difficult to do.
So I suppose it happens only on larger organizations, or where their functions can be dichotomized quite easily?
Yes, correct. So only for a large organization whereby their functions can be replicated, they have a lot of similar functions across a big team, then it is possible to split into 3 teams. Or they are on a shift work, so they can break into 3 shifts, and they just rotate it. That's possible. But most companies, they will start with 2, team A and team B.
I often hear from many of the line managers and management, with all this working from home, there's always a constant concern about productivity and whether, how productive are you from home and or be it not from home, from the site, alternative site, or somewhere around remotely. So maybe Sean want to share, how do we ensure we maintain the level of productivity, manage that productivity at the same time, also share a bit how PayPal does it.
Thank you. So for productivity, while the BCP being activated, for example, what Raymond mentioned, split teams. So before everything, during the planning, during the BCP testing, setting out the program prior to any crisis is to manage expectation. We need to understand that when BCP is being activated, when we do split team, it may not be possible to achieve 100% of what we need to achieve. So there must be a management of expectation so that people do not get split and assume that the work is going to be 100% be performed. So during testing phase, before the crisis, they should already understand through the testing what is to be done, what cannot be done, what the management are willing to accept not being able to do. And that will actually convey into actual crisis where we actually, like now, COVID-19 situation where we do split team, people already understand what are things that is critical that need to be done and what are things that is not on the priority list. And management must be able to accept that and understand that now. And secondly is, while we do split team, at every site, whether is it site A, B, and then those groups that work from home, management must be able to communicate effectively with them. This is one way to manage performance, but it's one way to manage morale, and of course we can touch on it later, but this is also one way to manage the whole team, while they are not seeing each other physically. So productivity is necessary, but then productivity needs to be managed. So effectively through communication, through testing and understanding what is critical and what is not, and then of course management must also take care of the well-being of the staff, because that will actually also convey to productivity efficiencies. Yeah.
Maybe Raymond, share a bit, as what Sean said, about productivity and all these split team arrangements. What are some of the challenges to arranging this splitting team A and team B, and also how to ensure that it's effective?
All right. Now, splitting teams itself is challenging. And as Sean just now shared with us, we have to manage the expectation of the performance once the team is split into team A and team B. I can see that for some of the organization, SME in probably the logistic and the manufacturing industry, they are very heavily relying on the on-site infrastructure. So when they split their team into team A and team B, effectively they would lose probably up to 50% of the productivity, because half of the workforce who is working from home practically will not be able to do any effective work at all. But then the management have to decide, are they going to put all the eggs in the same basket? Which means that if they don't split their team, what will happen is that if one of the staff got infected, then potentially, you guarantee that everybody in the same office will get quarantined. Right? And then they will be out of action for at least 14 days as of now. And that's also provided that the infection did not spread to other employees and start a new cluster. So the management have to be very, very aware that if they don't split the team, this is the risk they will have to take on as well. Now, of course, if they wanted to know if their plans is working well and fine, after the crisis, they can do some what we call exercises to ensure that the plans that are put in place are good.
Maybe just to add on what Raymond shared, I think there's actually a whole series of advisories, not just travel advisories, but also advisories issued by Ministry of Health and by the task force, at the same time also by Ministry of Manpower, in terms of leave of absence, stay home notices, and of course quarantine orders, etc., and how to manage this, be it from a management supervisor perspective, as well as a human capital HR practitioner perspective. So I think there are some of these, they are available. You can contemporaneously get them off the websites of MOH and MOM. And they serve as quite useful information, particularly if you need to know what to do next if one of your staff is being quarantined, and the necessary measures to take on if some of your staff go overseas to countries that have advisories against, and etc. So I think these are some of the things that you need. I mean, all practitioners, be it HR, human capital, or even line managers and management, and even consultants need to be aware, so that you keep yourself abreast of some of these new updates that are happening really by the fly. But at the same time, also, as what shared by Raymond, the challenges as well as how to ensure it's effective. Sean earlier talked about productivity. At the same time, also your staff also want to let the boss know that I'm actually around, but I'm working at home. I may be moving. I'm not gallivanting. I'm actually actively engaged and doing my work and present. So how do you think we can ensure staff still maintain the engagement level and communication, so that supervisors and management know that they are there?
One of the things that we strongly suggest managers to continue to do is to continue to host meetings, regular meetings, continue their operations, their processes. They have a meeting, they will make use of the technology that each company is using, whether is it Skype or Zoom or Google Chat, and to continue to engage, to continue to have that meeting. So through that is one way for the team to see each other. Because now we no longer just talk audio, we can talk VC, we can see the whole team. There are cases where the team actually even celebrated each other's birthday party on the VC teleconference meeting. By looking at it and then say hi, and this is one way. Next is also we strongly encourage managers to continue to do their one-on-one to the staff, so that they keep in touch with individual of them to understand their challenges, their issues, whether are they having difficulties managing the kid at home, the elderly at home during this difficult time, and so on. And this, through the conversation like this, that the manager actually get those updates. For example, yesterday my spouse is not well, actually seen a GP. And during this critical time, this is what the manager needs to do, and that's how we actually know there are family members who get sick of our staff, and then things get escalated. The management needs to know, so that we can actually do the necessary precaution measures. So we strongly encourage managers to continue to reach out to them, not only through work, but also through their individual one-on-one session with them. And also we encourage, depending on the size of the team, we encourage individual of them to continue using the technology to communicate with each other, keep in touch with each other. And although it's not strongly advisable to continue to go for gatherings and meet up, but with the technology nowadays, everybody can be connected, everybody can be in sync. And it also provides the channel for the staff to feedback to the managers any questions during this difficult time. Like they may ask that, I see that our building or company next to our office building has this case. Should I be concerned? Should me working from home for this week, tomorrow or next week, I intend to go back to office, is it safe? So this is where they feedback the concern to the managers, and managers can, if required, escalate to the management for attention to see if there's any action required. So communication is very important to keep the whole team together, not just productivity, but also, like you say, for the staff to let the manager know that, hey, I'm working on this, I'm actually working from home, and I'm still in touch, and of course we encourage that deliverables still has to continue. That's why we are doing all this business continuity. We are not asking people to go home just to wait it out, sit it out, but actually go home and try to work through this period from home, and that's why there are still performance, KPI, there are still certain deliverables, outcomes that is required. And so it's a both-way thing. That's why communication is key to let both parties be comfortable what each other is doing.
I agree.
And of course, these days, I noticed the goalpost has been shifting. We came from DORSCON yellow to orange, and then we are seeing mini waves. We have one wave of cases, particularly in Singapore, and then we are anticipating possible second wave, etc. So as we are preparing all these BCP measures, Maybe Raymond, you have consulted and provide advice to many organizations and businesses. All these business continuity plans, how often are we to revise them, review them, and or is there a pressing need midway of this crisis to actually can review your BCP measures?
All right. Under normal circumstances, we advise the client to review their plans at least once a year. But in this ever-changing, evolving situation right now, as you have mentioned, with the constant updates of travel advisories and instructions from the authority and ministry, the review frequency I would advise is to increase those review frequency. Is to look through your plan and to see whether those measures put in place up to date, are those measures put in place relevant to whatever advisories is given now to the organization. So definitely increase your review frequency at this moment. Now, what about after your crisis? Once the crisis is over, I definitely recommend the management to do another round of review to incorporate all the lessons learned into their existing plan so that they can make their plan even better to tackle the next coming crisis.
Maybe Sean share a bit. Now that probably a team B working from home or alternative, or particularly those working from home, with your laptop switched on or some teleconferencing device switched on or even mobile switched on, sometimes it's quite difficult to disconnect between work and home, particularly now that you are like in a home office kind of setting. So how do we, how does PayPal or does this prioritizing and segregating real work from really off work hours? But now that everybody's working from home,
For PayPal, we are because of the nature of the work. Most of the time, we are already have the flexibility and the mobility to work from home. But during this crisis, during this situation, we are encouraging staff to do a good practice, a good routine while working from home, especially for those groups that are working from home. Because I personally is among the group that when I work from home, I actually work longer hours than when I was in office. So I can stay long in office, but when I'm working from home, there's no, like you say, there's no line, there's no switch off line.
How do we draw the line? Okay, it's a work-life balance as well.
One suggestion that I tell the managers is to create a routine for yourself. That means I have a timetable. Today, what time I'm going to start work, I'll switch on, I will continue all the calls as necessary. Depend on whether you just cover the region or you have different time zone, then you have adjust your time. And then there must be meal time, there must be family time after work, and there must, most importantly, we even suggest our staff to continue to have exercise routine. Because after these few weeks of, few days of working from home, during these few weeks, past few weeks, I realized that I'm skipping my exercise routine, my regime. I'm not going to gym because we thought that it may not be safe. So and minus of that traveling time. So some people may say that, I'm actually working much long hours because the traveling time is 10 seconds from my bedroom to the computer.
That's true.
So they are feedbacking to us that it is actually longer working hours, and some of them, that's why I mentioned just now, is also the well-being of the staff. We give advisory, we suggest, we encourage them to have a routine, we encourage them to have a balance. Most importantly, the meals, most importantly, your exercise, most importantly, you need to switch off. Most importantly, also to take care of your self-care, your self-help. To make sure that the managers understand what are they facing, and especially now when the crisis is going global, and different BCPs from different parts of the world are also being activated, and then they will tend to reach out to us for help, and so on in their strategy. So there are cases where we have night calls and so on. So the managers need to be aware that my people are exposed to all this connection, because we're all connected globally, especially for MNCs, and that's why you need to manage also to control that, in a way, to have alignment. And of course, the best is during peacetime, before the crisis, during the discussion in the BCP or implementing the BCP, you talk about such things. But if not, this is the time to think about it. This is the time to come around and tell your staff that there's a line to draw. You need to draw your line, and then we will make the best out of this structure. Of course, along the way, like Raymond say, things move. The goalpost is always moving. Things will change next week. DOCSCON and so on will change and have changed. So the discussion is to make sure that the company communicate with their staff, make sure they understand what difficulty they are facing while working from home, and support them as much as possible.
Yeah. So please take the advice from Sean. So supervisors, managers, management staff, I think we have to delineate work and then, of course, after work hours quite carefully, and do it judiciously as well as responsibly. And perhaps, Raymond, maybe you share a bit. You have seen many companies, organizations, and Sean, you're from MNC, so many of these large organizations have very good, robust, strong BCP SOPs and plans already in place. But I wouldn't dare say it's for every company or organization has it. So there may be some who are now kind of like a bit frantic, panicking because they never have thought of BCP. And having all these SOPs and maybe call tree list or working side A, side B, is if an organization, possibly be an SME startup or even a micro SME, what advice do you have for such organizations which actually don't have any BCPs on hand yet?
Okay, all right. So for those organizations who does not have any BCP at this moment, don't panic. It's not too late. Basically, you have two options. Now, first, you can send your staff. Okay, you send your staff for training to learn how to create and implement your business continuity plan.
How long is the training, by the way?
There are a series of courses. Which should be 3 courses. Each course lasts for 1 or 2 days. And those are WSQ funded courses.
Oh, great.
Heavily subsidized by the
Skills
government.
Future and
Skills
all.
Future.
Skills Future.
Yes. So this is one of the popular options that we have been seeing a lot of SME are doing right now, sending their staff for training. The second option, of course, they can hire external consultant to help them to accelerate their path in creating a suitable business continuity plan. So consultant is the second path. Now, whichever options the organization choose to go with, they would have to, in my recommendation, to appoint a role to one of the staff. The role is called Business Continuity Manager, BC Manager. So internally, they have to get somebody to be the.
So it can be anyone. It can be HR. It can be the ops admin person.
It could be HR. It could be the ops. It could be the person who is in charge of security.
Okay.
All right. And this person, the responsibility of this person is to coordinate and organize in the event of a crisis, how the rest of the organization is going to recover and respond. And this person also will be in charge of driving the program within the organization to get everybody to create their own business continuity plan. So this is a very important role. Now, this role in a big organization like maybe Sean organization or the banks or the hospital, they have full-time role for this. But in most of the SME, this role is a part-time role. Right? So if you can get a HR to double up, you can get security manager to double up, you can get your compliance manager to double up this role. But this role is important so that the program can be driven.
Okay, so much about questions. Something more close to many of our hearts. As we all know, next week is the March school holidays in Singapore. So I think some parents or may have already had holiday plans overseas, i.e. to countries where there are advisories, or countries there are no advisories, and so how do we handle that? If, let's say, particular staff of ours or yours goes to a country where there's advisory, or goes to a country where there's no advisory, but then comes back, and how are we going to manage that? Maybe Raymond will share.
I think we will have to practice what we call social responsibility. I think first of all, if we were to go into those countries that are so-called on the list, that if we come back to Singapore, we have to so-called quarantine ourselves, we have to do so. Yeah. But I think from company to company, the HR policy may differ. Some company may not ask where the staff is going, but rely on the staff own social responsibility to quarantine themselves if they go to places like maybe China or Italy and then they come back. But there are also other companies in which the HR policy may dictate that the staff will have to declare to the company to tell the HR where they are going, and so that the HR can help to monitor if the staff come back, did they actually quarantine themselves or not. But I think this is a very tough choice to make. But I think my general advice is that try to avoid to go to those companies, those countries. Yeah.
No, Sean, what about PayPal? I mean, what do you all do?
Maybe I can add to that also.
Particularly with MNC environment where you have global staff and a very frequent movement and air travel.
So of course, for personal travel, I think it's good practice that the company who is aligned to MOH or MOM requirement to do their own declaration. How do you want to do it within the company? I think they can sort it out. But I think it's good practice to have that data, even though it may not be mandatory, but it's good practice for the HR to know where your staff will be going or plan to go, or whether they have been to any places in the past couple of weeks. And of course now with the goalpost moving, because more and more countries are on the list now, so I think it's even more important for HR to actually have that information of where, what kind of risk level are their own staff being exposed to. That's number one. Number two is, I think I agree with what Raymond mentioned about social responsibility. The company, and all companies should always remind, as well as the government is trying to do so, to advise the public to practice social responsibility. If you know that you are in that group that is maybe of certain risk, raise your hand, declare to the HR, and opt to work from home or be at home and monitor yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that's very important. So that's number two, social responsibility. Number three, I think, is good practice for management to do a common communication to them, to remind them, because these are things that, especially we are in such a society of technology advancement, social media and so on. We read more news than we see our management conversations to us. So instead of having the external news to direct your staff, it's important for the company to have good communication from top down, to tell them, to remind them, practice good hygiene. If you have been to certain place, please remember to fill in the declaration, and especially managers. I think their first line of defense, because if they have feedback to managers, even if they didn't tell HR, manager will be able to escalate, and so on.
Yeah, minus social responsibility, civic consciousness, and of course the dichotomy within business travel, which most organizations are now trying to minimize. And of course social, leisure or personal travel. And I think Sean also very aware different jurisdictions have different privacy laws.
Correct.
So how do we navigate that? This part on the privacy bit where I take my own trip and I'm on my own leave. How do you manage that part of it?
That is why we go by different angles. That's why I emphasize on the communication within the managers. That is the first line of defense. So even though at different locations, different sites, different countries, they are not in that culture of declaring, reviewing my privacy, my life, where I bring my child to or family holidays to, the managers will be able to flag out if they know that there's a certain level of risk there at the first instance. But of course, if they do not tell the managers at all and nothing, nobody, then the company will not know. So it depends. So that is why it's also important for the company to have the culture of good practice, awareness, and then open communication and so on. So that it's not just during the crisis situation, but even during non-crisis situation, that the staff are comfortable in telling the company, this is what, because I understand your point of view, I understand why you want to know all these things, and I'm willing to reveal this to you. So I think that is a lot of work to be done in establishing the culture. But for now, for those companies who do not have anything, I think it's good to start with the company message top down, to tell them why we are doing this, and bring in the alignment with MOH advisory, and say that for good practice, to protect you and the company, we need to do this, we need to find out these things.
I think just to add on, I think just on this topic of privacy, whether the staff are willing to share their personal information. I do see this privacy issue challenge in when we are trying to gather phone numbers, mobile phone number for call tree. So call trace is very important for contact tracing and communication with the staff. But there are staff who are maybe not very willing to share their personal mobile number. So that could be something that is sometimes very hard for HR or even business continuity professional like Sean to gather those important contact number. But I guess in this time, we probably have to draw a line in which in what level the privacy is important to the staff, and what level it should be done in a way that is good for the common good of everybody who is working in the company for their own protection.
Okay, now that all of you back at where you are, whether at from home or your office or somewhere else, watching this live webinar, or maybe on Team B split arrangements, after hearing from all three of us, we'd like to open now to the floor, and all of you watching us on this live webinar, file your questions, just post it in the comments, and we're waiting for the questions to come in, and I know they're coming in hard and fast. So let me go to there are two questions already on screen being prompted. Firstly, my management's first question. My management is raising high cost of renting alternate sites as objection of going on BCP. Are there alternative sites we can look at to manage costs? Maybe Raymond or Sean share a bit.
I think the cheapest way is to work from home, right? If you can work from home, invest in the technology that you can work from home. So you can have maybe Microsoft Teams, so you can have team meetings, GoToMeeting, Skype. There's a lot of technology tools. So those usually requires only very minimal investment. If you need to connect from your home to your systems in the organization, you can also invest in more VPN accounts being issued to the staff. In general, working from home, investing in the technology that enable you to communicate and connect the system from home is cheaper than so-called renting and paying rent for an alternate site in which you're not going to use. Now, of course, unless you have other offices, already have some other offices, and you can actually make use of those meeting room in other offices as your alternate site, and that definitely will cut costs. But if you're talking about renting or paying some kind of sum of money to get an alternate site ready, working from home is still cheapest of all. If you can do that.
I think the baseline. I think the baseline is to ask yourself what are the nature of work that you're doing. What is the nature of business? What is the requirement? So that you can determine whether it's working from home, everybody working from home sufficient, or actually I need to pay more to actually rent a place, or I need to have a dedicated site, or do I have multiple offices? So I think that is the question to ask at the baseline. What is the nature of work?
So in a way, that kind of industry sector, whether they are frontline work, whether they are sales, and the nature of the work also does play a part in whether you decide whether to have alternative site or can able to work from home.
One of the things that management will always look at is what we call the ROI, right? So cost benefit. So one of the ways you can pitch to management is this. Say, for example, if I were to be disrupted, my operation will be disrupted, be it COVID-19, fire, or cyber attack, for whatever reason, I cannot now work from where I'm working right now. And maybe I will be disrupted for a longer period of time. Now, what is the impact? What is the cost to the organization? So once the management know the cost of not being able to operate, say, for example, 2 weeks or a month, is far outweigh the amount of money they're going to pay to the investment of the alternate site or whatever technology. I think then that is an easy sell to the management.
There's one question coming in. It asks our panel, is there a general business continuity planning document for remote work at home? Yeah, this is by Danny. So, is there
do you have any?
Sort of like a, I think, standard operational procedure or sort?
Yeah, it's
or maybe
more
even
of
downloadable on some website or.
I think that is part of the BCP, and whether the breakdown and the checklist for what to do and what we should look out for when working from home should be just a SOP, standard operating procedure, as part of the BCP. Because BCP cover various possibility, so it's just we look at consequences, not cause. So it can be because the BCP activated because there's a fire, because there's a flood, but in this case because of pandemic. So maybe you have a pandemic plan in your organization, maybe you do not have. But I think working from home is just a SOP document where you can have the checklist of when things happen, you need to send people home to work from home, plug it out, the SOP, and then you look at the checklist, what are the things that you should look out for? One of the things that we talk about, how to...
Is there any available place where you can get this kind of checklist? Go for training or?
Definitely, we go for the training, WSQ.
What's the title of the training called? WSQ
In conducting, in creating business continuity plan. So you can look for the course of creating.
So there's available course.
Available course to create a business continuity plan. And during this course, they will share with you a certain templates that you can use. As what Sean said, they will ask you to list out what are some of your prioritized activities, those functions that you should be continuing doing despite whatever crisis. And even from home, you will focus on delivering those services or those work that's on your BCP.
Yeah, so you heard from Raymond. Now that in the budget 2020, we announced Skills Future credits for individuals. We also announced Skills Future enterprise grant as well.
Okay.
So make leverage and anyway it's WSQ, Workforce Skills Qualification and Skills Future endorsed.
Yes.
So a company, when they send their staff for such training, whether they are directly involved or indirectly involved in the BCP process, will send the benefit, and companies will get subsidy, training subsidy from government, as well as even absentee payroll.
Oh yeah.
If they support during office hours. So if you have not done anything, don't panic. Like what Raymond says, either you engage the professionals, consultants, or send your staff or your team who are appointed as BCP, possibly managers or the team of BCP response team for some training which is not extensively long. They are in bite-sized kind of like modular training,
definitely.
so they at least get them primed up and prepared. Yeah. So I have some more questions coming up hard and fast. So what do companies provide in general to support working remotely? Laptops, VPN, or mobile phone allowances? Yeah. So what do you all see generally organizations or advice giving?
Generally, I think the first is laptops. Yeah, because most companies will have now operating from laptops rather than desktop. Depend on the nature of the work also. So for the departments who are still using our desktop, that means this group of people are most likely they are not able to function out of that office. Yeah, then we need to have assess them separately. But most of people.
So what do they do? Do they like lease temporarily some laptops, or they?
Possible, right?
Possible. Or for example, now a lot of IT departments, IT teams, support teams are scrambling to get new laptops to stand by. Just in case that this group of people who are working on desktop needs to work from home, they have one stack of a laptop all programmed and all configured, ready for them to use.
Or smart devices like iPad or
Correct.
or Android kind of tablet. Yeah.
The next mentioned just now was laptops and VPN. So VPN is for us to connect back to the server when we are at home. So this is a common challenge for BCM practitioner in a lot of organizations when we are sending people to work from home, because in peacetime they engage agreement to have that amount of bandwidth.
I see.
And the number of VPNs users for peacetime. And then when in this situation, COVID, and then there are more and more people, more than expected as planned in the BCP that needs to work from home. Then what do? Then you quickly expand. You need to scramble to recontract, expand the bandwidth.
So you see organizations doing that?
Yes. It's very common, and especially during pandemic, because it depends on how things are fluid and volatile in the office. Suddenly, the whole office may be required to work from home, and then the bandwidth just explode.
Yeah, because what I see is that most of the time in normal days, when do we work from home? After working hours, right? After working hour, we do OT at home, we connect via the VPN. That's only a handful of people, and it's after working hour. But right now, during working hour, for a very long period of time, a substantial number of people in the organization may be required to connect through the VPN to the systems. And that will usually create a bottleneck. If the bandwidth is not being enlarged at this moment, it will make working from home a painful experience for the staff.
Yes.
And then they will start to complain and they will not like it. So
that will affect efficiency and productivity as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
And before I segue to the next question, I wanted to ask the panel, now that we have Team A, Team B, and sometimes Team B usually work from home or elsewhere, I mean, there's possibly morale issues.
Yeah.
Why am I Team A and then always in the office, and why am I Team B perpetually at home? So, I mean, there's this, sometimes it affects staff morale. Wow,
imbalance.
Half of my colleagues are at home, relaxing at home. Is there potential morale issues, and how do we overcome this?
it's good practice for one of the strategy depend on again these two groups of people, whether are they doing the same thing or are they able to rotate. So one of the strategy is to assess what they do and to actually implement. One of the option is after 2 weeks or 1 week we rotate. That means team A actually go from home the next week, and then we rotate on so that people take turns to do that. But that must be carefully managed because you are exposing those people working from home to start traveling to work, to go out for lunch together, and so on. And then if things escalate, you may, in the interval between the rotating, to actually do disinfecting the office properly.
So the disinfecting must be done, I suppose?
A lot of companies are already increasing their frequency of disinfecting. Instead of once a day, now most companies do 3 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So the disinfecting the office, particularly must be done just before the switching over. Yep. So say for example on the Friday of the work week, so just before the next team rotate, you do a deep cleaning. What I mean by deep cleaning means you have to clean a lot of places that normally you don't clean, like the doorknobs, the area, the taps,
because
contact,
where there's a lot of hand touch. So you have to do those deep cleaning, and then of course over the weekend, don't ever allow staff from either the team to come back. To come back so that you have across the weekend. Yes, across the weekend is kind of like a holding period. So nobody go there.
Yep.
So
that you don't get cross-contamination.
Correct. So then the next team will move in and then the other team move out.
A lot of companies have a lot of challenges during the handing over. They call it handing over. So they split. So they tend to possibility of stuff like you say, hey, can I meet you 1 hour so that you can hand over physically to me? That kind of thing.
Go Starbucks.
So it's challenging, and that must be, the line must be drawn. The management must say that the purpose of doing this is this. We do not want you to have contact with team A, and so on.
How about if they meet each other in the middle of the shopping mall?
Just say hi.
Team A is there, Team A is there, I'm Team B.
As long as the awareness is done, then maybe they will say hi and turn around.
Possibly. I got a question from Joyce that's appearing here. See, she asked, when someone is in office, a lot of passive information gathering happens, of course, the informal chats and the pantry discussions. As working remotely does not allow such interaction, employees may feel disconnected. How can we solve this problem?
Just now, I mentioned about the team constant communication with them. The managers will keep in touch with them. They will see each other. Team A will be able to talk to Team B daily basis so that they update each other on what they have for lunch and then talk to each other what's happening in the office and what are the challenges. So I think communication is key to make sure that either party, whether you are on site or whether you're working from home, do not get disconnected, do not feel low in morale. That's why that is part under the category of well-being, to make sure that everybody is balanced. And rotation helps because I know that next week I will be there. So I think we must approach this from a holistic, different angle perspective, so that of course while this is considered while planning for the BCP, so all these things must be considered so that the management understand that this is a holistic thing and not just reactive, that work from home, okay, let's get everybody work from home. We need to think about other things like what was highlighted, disconnected, morale, and their imbalance and so on.
I agree with Sean. Just sharing a little bit of my own experience. Right now I'm also on split team, and I have to go back to office on alternate weeks, which is great. It's always great to go back to the office once in a while. But now working from home, how do I get my morale up? I think the technology of having able to do this online meeting is important. And when you do online meeting, you will need to switch on your cameras, so you actually see physical faces and not just hearing the voices. Because seeing the physical faces help also as well, so you can almost feel like the co-worker is there. And of course, if you need to blow a virtual birthday cake across the screen, you do that also as well, just for the fun of it. Somebody said you can share birthday celebration across.
Some of my teams actually do birthday celebration online. So just to make sure that everybody share the love.
Correct. That we are still for each other.
Actually, on this point of working from home, I mean, there's a question from Shafrin. He says, any tips on eliminating distractions while working at home? Because at home you have access to everything, be it food, Be it your family members, children, and everything else. There's lots of distractions, including the bed.
Yes.
So how do we eliminate all these distractions?
For myself, I have a dedicated room at my home.
Yes.
It's like my home office. So when I'm inside there, I will close the door. I'll close the door and I'll focus on whatever I think I need to do. So that, because at home I have pets, so my pets, my cats will come.
Okay.
will come and look for me.
That's a big distraction.
So I've closed the door. I don't care if the cat is mewing outside. I say, Daddy has to work right now. So they just focus on what I think. If you have a dedicated room, a bedroom to work, it helps rather than you're in the living room. So if you have kids and they may come back from work or from schools, they may be bothering you. So it has to create the so-called in-office environment.
So I suppose those who don't have a dedicated room can like find a dedicated corner.
Yes.
Where they can actually be most focused and away from, to minimize all these distractions.
I think just like I mentioned, setting up the routine helps, because you know that certain hours is your work time. And as the company continue to conduct meetings and so on, during those work times you are engaged in calls. And of course, those empty slots in a calendar, those are times where you can actually get a drink, get your lunch, get your food, and move around. And that's where you have a balance. And that's how you
have conversations with customers or potential clients and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, working from home doesn't mean we stay at home all the time. As you mentioned, we sometimes will have to go out to meet clients and customers. And I think that also helps to break the routine of just having to stay at home just for the whole entire week.
In fact, it has been strongly advised and recommended to everyone working from home to actually find time to step out of the house.
Right.
Not just the routine that you are drawing a line to finish work, this is my off work time, but also to step out of the house so that you're not disengaged from outside world. Of course, it's sensitive during this period, but it's too good to just step out for some fresh air, go for a jog and feel connected.
Yeah.
Earlier on, both of you talked about some of these, for those companies particularly don't have any plans to really start going for training and getting out a checklist.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a viewer who asked, some of these causes that both of you alluded to, and I'm also aware both of you are in your own capacities are doing some of these training without advertising for your respective companies and organizations. Where can they get information on this? How do they Google it, or is there a website where all these WSQ programs?
They can definitely Google for WSQ courses. There's a lot of courses that is available. Because if they Google my organization, we also provide a lot of training that's related to business continuity planning. In fact, I'm going to conduct a training this Friday for the Print and Media Association of Singapore, and that is a free training for the members of those associations. So if you happen to be the members of the Print and Media Association Singapore, you can maybe contact the person in charge, and you will be able to attend a free one-day training on creating pandemic response plan, and I'll be the trainer there.
Great. Yeah. Okay, there's questions coming in hard and fast again. This is Jimmy as well. He asked about, my bosses are not comfortable with staff working from home. How do I convince them that working from home is the best way to go?
Actually, it all depends on what we are dealing with. In this case, for COVID-19, I think the risk and the impact is very clear. You will, just like what Raymond mentioned, you have to weigh when you're looking at ROI. I don't like to use the word ROI, but you need to understand what's the consequences of inaction. Action and inaction. There is a cost and there's a consequences. So if you do not do certain things, in this case, people fall sick. Your workforce will be disrupted. Your process will be disrupted. Your operation will be disrupted. What is the impact? Can you handle it? As compared to you allowing them to go back, understanding that there is maybe a degraded mode of operation, but your business continues. So that's a big thing. And of course, the main thing about business continuity is not just about how we respond with a BCP during a crisis. It's about the difference between having a BCP and not having a BCP program after a crisis. How fast can you recover thereafter that makes you having an advantage to compare to your competitors who doesn't have a plan and who doesn't know how to respond. So I think that is a question, some hard questions they have to ask themselves.
Yeah, I think the organization have to look at also from the perspective of the corporate social responsibility. Now, if under these circumstances, if say for example the company choose not to split team because they're not comfortable with half of the workforce so-called working from home. Now, what is the implication if there is an infection to one of the staff working in the office? How would the rest of the employee in the organization view the company and the management? Would they say, why don't we split ourselves earlier on? Why should we subject ourselves to this risk? Are the management doing what they are supposed to do to protect us? So hard questions like this will be asked if the organization were to be hit by infection.
Especially during the COVID situation, a lot of topics and discussion about duty of care.
That's right.
So it's not just about the management making a decision. The staff is also worried about own health, about my family. You know, they say that I have family and kids and elderly at home, and yet I have to come to work during this sensitive period. Yeah, giving them the option will help them and also to manage the morale. But of course, it depends on those questions that I mentioned just now, whether the management are willing to answer those truthfully.
Right.
Okay, there's one question by Muti. He asked, what is this minimum split shift arrangement? Is alternate days sufficient? I suppose the question is on whether we do it week A, week B, or by the week, by the fortnight, by the month, or permanently, or day 1, day 2, day 1. Or what's the usual practice? Or
I think in my organization we do alternate weeks. I see other organizations doing 2 weeks, alternate 2 weeks.
Have you ever seen like what he mentioned?
Alternate days? I think that will be challenging.
That will be
from an implementation point of view.
Especially the disinfection.
And from a management perspective, they must ask themselves what is the rationale of wanting to do it every 2 days. Is it because just the number that they come up with, or there's some operational meaning to it? Yeah, and also like you mentioned, we need some time in between to do disinfection.
That came to my mind. Because earlier on we talked about, especially if it's normal office hours. Saturday, Sunday is cleaning time.
Yes.
You get a specialist, professional cleaners to disinfect, clean all your knobs and stuff like that, so that the other team that comes in will be coming in clean.
Correct. So I think that holding period is very important for you to do deep cleaning. And if you somehow miss out one spot there, and then there's one virus there, across the weekend, hopefully it dies. Right? So it's very important.
Okay, a few more questions. One question from Joe. What are some guidelines for events? Are there any tripartite guidelines, or should we cancel all events? Okay, well, it's tripartite, so probably directed at me. Okay, the tripartite guidelines on events, there's no tripartite guidelines on events, but MOH has rolled out a series of advisories through the gov.sg WhatsApp updates, broadcasts, and also the various advisories. So I think things like avoid mass gatherings, avoid, even as of yesterday, to my knowledge, People's Association has already come out with advisory on particularly elderly, mass events at the grassroots level or the constituency level, try to minimize or avoid them where possible. So these are, and I know some of them are stopping events for 2 weeks, kind of like a whole layoff period. And there's no tripartite guidelines in that sense, but there are advisories. So I think, as the experts say it, both you heard from Sean and Raymond, we try to avoid contamination, cross-contamination, and of course, get large-scale gatherings where possible. And I do hear, that's why my fellow sisters and brothers on the hospitality sector has been getting quite a bit hard hit because many large-scale events have been either postponed, whether it's local events, even wedding dinners, even international forums and panels, various parts of the world have been kind of like postponing the events or cancelling the events to minimize some of these contamination and cross-contamination. So that's for to answer that question. So do look out for advisories. I think the advisories generally has been telling you to take a very precautionary and conservative stance when it comes to minimizing contamination and possible spreading of or infection. The next question also from Joy Lee, how do we measure productivity on the work from home arrangement? We talked about a bit about this earlier, but maybe you want to elaborate, how do we measure productivity if we are working from home?
I think first of all is for the management to understand during situation like this or when the BCP is activated, what level of performance or productivity are you expecting? So if you understand what is critical and what is not, then you already establish the baseline, what processes need to be done and what processes we can maybe don't do so critically during the crisis, and that is a way to gauge your productivity and performance during the period of working from home.
I think for professional like us, me and Sean, those more of a desk-bound kind of work, if you would work from home, I think the drop in productivity is not significant. It's not significant because we are all very used to working remotely and working anywhere else. I can work in Starbucks, I can work in a hotel, so there's practically not much drop in productivity. But if your work is relying on infrastructure, right, that is only available on site, and then of course there will be a significant drop in productivity because basically when you stay at home, you can't do much things. So it also depends on the nature of the work that you're doing right now. And management has to, like what Sean said, set the expectations, and all of us have to have a clear and transparent communication so that we know that the employee will feel good that they are able to meet the new expectation that's been set by the management.
There's one question, in fact, two questions on Muti. The first is asked, if a staff is diagnosed with COVID-19, does the whole team at that same shift need to go into quarantine? Bylaw?
So as far as I know, if in the office context there's one confirmed case of COVID-19, MOH will reach out and do their own contact. MOH will do the contact tracing. They have a Singapore government has a team doing contact tracing, and they will reach out to those as declared as close proximity or close contact from the confirmed case. So and then they will be contacted, and then depending on when is the last time this confirmed case actually come in contact with the office people, and then they will decide how many days of quarantine order they will be given by law. And of course, there's a difference between quarantine order and SHN and LOA.
Stay home
and depend on how they contact you, they will advise you and instruct you accordingly. And that is by law, of course. And whether is it a whole team, it all depends on the outcome of the contact tracing results.
But I do heard some organizations, they will take more precautionary measures.
Err in conservatism.
Yes. So they will still, if you are in the same place, although you do not have so-called under definition of close contact, which is maybe like this, for more than 15 minutes or so, together within 1 meter, that's called close contact.
So kind of put them on leave of absence.
They call it a precautionary leave of absence or work from home. So it's just precautionary basis. It's not by law. Of course, it's subjected to certain companies and staff objection or
But I think most of the staff, they themselves will feel better if they work from home under these circumstances.
So Moti also asked, what is Code 3?
Interesting. What is that context?
Code 3.
So maybe if Moti can, hearing us, elaborate a bit.
Sounds very familiar, this Code 3. It just jumped on my mind.
Yes. The next one, Megan asked, can you please explain PDPA guidelines exceptions to collect employee visitor information, health, travel declaration? How about PayPal's experience? Because PDPA guidelines,
Yes, of course, I think HR plays a very important role in organization because HR is in contact with MOH regulatory, so they keep track and monitor what the changes, especially these couple of weeks. There's a lot of changes additional to the list get longer. HR will have to be aware what is the required as instructed from the government, MOH or MOM. So there are certain cases where MOM say, we strongly advise you to do your own declaration, and then that's where the HR will have to come up with that declaration and discuss with the management how to implement that declaration, because there are different companies who do it different ways. Some do it by online intranet, and then they make them complete the declaration. If not by the first 2 days, if not they will get locked out. And some go by hard copy, and then some do it at the entrance when they tap in the office the first day. And then we tend to see more of this happening, and that's why the HR in different companies are trying to improve the way they do it for sustainability, because things changes and they find that they have to do it not just once, they do it like twice in 2 weeks, and then because the list get on and on. So I think it depends on what is the regulatory requirement for
Maybe just to add on to what Sean shared, visitor information, I think about PDPA guidelines. So be careful, because I know now many buildings, premises are collecting a lot of personal data.
Correct.
So under the Personal Data Protection Act, collect, use and disclosure of personal data is a no-no. So be mindful of it, particularly when I think taking temperatures and putting names are essential. But don't collect NRIC numbers, because as of last year, there is already some regulations via the PDPA and the guidelines on collection of NRIC numbers. At the same time, also it's to get some form of business contact information. I think that's one of the exemptions under the PDPA. You can provide handphone numbers, some form of way to contact you. If you don't give handphone numbers, some form of
emails,
way to contact you. Basically, for the purposes in case we need to do contact tracing and to ease the authorities in doing some measures. But otherwise, for those business or premise owners collecting visitor information, be careful. Don't get and flash out all the information that you have right at the doorstep. Everybody can just take a picture and then all your personal information, or particularly in some cases where a bit more detailed information are required, particularly in certain maybe key installations, etc. So handle that with care. Next one, question to speakers. Which companies have impressed you in terms of their BCP plans? Okay, any notable story to share? Our curiosity.
You have seen more?
I'm not too sure if I have liberty to mention any particular company.
But maybe maybe share some of the best practices. Yeah.
I do see some of the organizations have done pretty well. I recently went to what we call a tertiary institute.
Okay.
So campus, right? Campus. There's a lot of campus here in Singapore. So I'm not going to name any particular campus. How you see, campus is a very large place.
Yes,
and
how porous as well.
Yeah, so how do you do screening, and how do you ensure everybody do temperature checking? It is a huge task to do that. So when I get to the campus, I was immediately having signs to direct me to a few checkpoints within the campus to go through the temperature checking. Of course, given the stickers also as well. And when I look around, everybody in the campus have this sticker, and they paste notice all over the campus saying that if you don't get your temperature checked, now any of the staff, even the F&B manager, can refuse services to you.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And
taking it very seriously.
And they're definitely taking very seriously, which I like it. Even in a very large premises, which is very hard to control, they still put in a few various checkpoints to ensure that you go through those checkpoints and get your temperature checked, which I think it gives me a very good sense of safety when I enter these premises. And then when I went into the building and I was just meeting somebody else, in each and every room they will have a piece of paper, some QR code to do what?
Correct.
For you to scan and then key in your contact information so that you track that you have been in this room
at this time.
At this time, who is with you?
Yeah.
And I think that is very responsible of that organization to implement procedure like that. So I give that organization a big thumbs up.
It's basically to also leverage on technology, like QR code. And I believe the QR code also, I heard of cases where they use the QR code to say if you are in this room for meeting, you scan and then you just register, so that they know that this time, these people are in this room. And if you fail to record, certain companies share with me that if the staff fail to declare their temperature for twice a day, the next day morning you will not be able to log in your own account. Yeah, so using technology to enforce that these good practices in a company. Yeah.
There's a next question by Jimmy. We talk about WSQ course training funding. He asked, are there any funding we can tap on for BCP or implementing work from home, to your knowledge?
So if you go through those WSQ courses, they will basically teach you how you can create business continuity plan. Now, when you have a business continuity plan, basically it enables you to work at alternate site, it enables you to work from homes. So the location of where you're going to work doesn't really matter. What is most important is that with a business continuity plan, you are able to resume and recover and resume whatever critical business function that you need. So working from home is just a way of delivering those services, but in the sense of business continuity, your focus is not exactly where you work, but how are you going to deliver those required services in times of crisis.
Next question. Can companies restrict staff from travelling for personal purposes during this period? And though there's a travel declaration, there's still risk that they can't return if more countries implement shutdown.
There's always a risk.
There's always a risk.
Yeah. You may get yourself
We talk about it, the responsibility and stuff like that.
During this volatile period where the bans of travels for certain countries changes
By the day.
by the day, not the weeks, by the day.
Correct.
That's why also HR has to be on top of this, to be updating the company, on these are the list of countries, and remind the staff that if should you be traveling in the near future, in the next couple of weeks to these countries, take note, and then highlight to HR, and HR will be able to advise you on all these things, because the company needs to know. For example, like what the message mentioned, after you come back, you may not be quarantined, and then you will be away from work. That impacts the company. So the company needs to know. Yeah.
So Sean, if right now there's a 60% off a cruise tour, will you still go?
I would strongly advise against it.
Probably joining a cruise will be, unfortunately, is one of the highest risks.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, how should companies view MCs as medical certificates in this period? If I have a normal call, I was issued, because now it's a 5 days MC if you have respiratory related stuff. It's only March and I burned 10 days of MC. What's the tripartite position on this? So actually, I filed this question in Parliament, just a couple of weeks back, asking Minister from Ministry of Manpower. So how do we handle this? So I think the advice or whatever is been fleshed out is that because in the Under Employment Act, there's a provision that a person can only take 14 days of
maximum
sick leave,
Yes.
casual sick leave,
Yes.
and then add up together maximum of 60 days of hospitalization leave in the Employment Act. So 14 days, what happens if I use up, in this case, 10 days or even 5 days?
Yeah.
But now you have no choice. Previously, you only get 2 days and then third day you go back to work. Now you have no choice. It's a blanket 5 days. So I think the general advice has been going out at the tripartite level is that where possible, we will handle it case by case. We know which are those that have during this difficult period, during this COVID-19 period, have gotten MCs. So employers are encouraged to be a bit more compassionate.
Right.
Not just compassionate, but also generous and progressive. So that if they use it not because of by personal choice or we advise them to be a bit more compassionate in terms of allowing more MCs. At the same time, also we do not stop companies, or even companies decide to treat these 5-day MCs as hospitalization leave. We are more than happy to encourage them to tap on that. And if any of the workers or employers do face problems, please approach our tripartite partners, including the Ministry of Manpower. If you face really a unique situation where you're really pushed to the edge, maximizing all this, and then your employers come down hard on you. So if you are really aggrieved, contact Ministry of Manpower. Next question we have is, if we do not want to disinfect due to cost factor and not alternate the team back to office, is it okay for staff? To work from home team come back to office to print collect stuff over the weekend? I mean, we talked a bit about that.
I would
what's the
strongly
recommendation?
do not encourage that. Just now, as I mentioned, if you already split into 2 teams, Team A and Team B, Team A and Team B are not supposed to meet each other, and I don't recommend even Team B to come back to the office across the weekend to print some stuff or whatever. So this is a point whereby the management has to support the Team B, right? To get maybe the members in the Team A to print for Team B instead, courier whatever thing that's required either to Team B or straight to the client side. So avoid having Team B to come back in the weekend, right? Just to play safe.
Sean, anything to add?
No, it caught my attention is the word disinfecting the office. So
You have to, right?
if you have staff coming back on weekends, then what happened to the disinfecting procedure?
Yeah.
So that must be thought through carefully, and Yeah, so it's to manage the risk.
Okay. Yeah. We have probably a few more last few questions, and before we end this session, there's one that says, for guests that do not want to fill the declaration form, can we bar them from entering the building? Or what's the stance, or what have you seen
I
organizations
think most
doing?
building management now, for example, when I come to this building, they require me to fill in the form to do some declaration to a certain level. I don't think they will allow me to come in if I do not fill the form, because that will really hinder the contact tracing process if there's a need to, and they will not be able to find who.
Particularly, these are all privately owned premises.
Correct.
A building or premise owner actually has a prerogative.
Correct.
in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's still down to the enforcement at the building, whether would they really bar me from coming. I've yet to try it out. Maybe one fine day I will try to not to fill in the form, and I will see what is the reaction for those people. Maybe some of those are not ready to bar people, although they are told not to do, but the standard protocol, how you bar these people, they may not know how to handle. So maybe building owners need to take note of and educate the staff. What if somebody really refused to declare and go ahead and want to go into the lift? What are you going to do about it?
I think before we end today's live webinar, and besides thanking both Raymond and Sean, I probably some parting advice or words as we talk about this topic of remote work, productivity, and communication in this BCP period, so to speak. Any parting words for our viewers and all of us watching this?
For me, it's very simple. If you have your business continuity plan, your pandemic response plan, do implement it, do stick with it, and stick to the measure that is given out by the management. If you do not have this plan, don't be despair. There are courses available for you to attend to seek help. So do attend those courses, do get yourself prepared for maybe, because this crisis may be taking longer than expected. It may not be going away that soon. Right? We have to be prepared for a long crisis also as well.
So to add on to that, since this is a COVID-19 is a pandemic crisis, it may not go off soon. So to think about sustainability, think about the things that you do and how you can actually prolong that and sustain that for a period of time. And along the way, you need to tweak. You have to tweak it, improve it, fine-tune it. And the main thing I think from those who are concerned about working from home is if you do work from home, communication is key, especially from the management and company point of view, to keep in touch with them, take care of their well-being, the morale, so that everybody is balanced. And do think of a different strategy like rotating, doing a shift, and so on, so to make it more sustainable.
So on this note, as we come to a close to this live webinar, I would like to thank Sean Lin from PayPal, as well as Raymond E from BCP Asia. And my final advice to everyone: stay safe, stay healthy, stay hygienic, and stay connected, and also stay informed. Because as we talked about earlier, a lot of information coming in literally by the day. So I think whether you're a practitioner, whether you're a fellow worker, a union leader, or even HR staff or management staff, I mean, it's important to stay informed, and the information is coming out very, very contemporaneously across the globe, particularly in Singapore, to gov.sg. So keep a lookout on it, and then of course, then we be better be bad. And as shared by Raymond earlier, there are various programs and consultancies available, even funded programs for you to tap on. So don't panic. There's help available, and also some of the sessions that Raymond is doing for various organizations. And like I said, I hope all of you stay healthy and stay well. And on this note, I'd like to thank our organizers, Singapore FinTech Association, as well as the Banking and Financial Services Union, for bringing this live webinar to you. And of course, our supporting organizations again, Singapore Business Federation, E2Y, as well as PayPal, and of course, ATRR for us to use this venue to stream this live webinar to all of you. Once again, have a good day and stay safe.